ignorance, whenever we think of competition, we think of this brutal zero-sum, I win, you lose environment. But competition in the economic modern sense is not a battle between people. It is a battle between ideas, and the winning ideas get to guide our actions in the most profitable and productive way for our benefit. I know sometimes people do lose their jobs, but this is just a sign of progress. The system forces everyone to update their skills as old processes are automated, leaving more brains available to work on newer technologies that can increase the economic pie faster and just moving faster into the future. In order for this wonderful competitive process upon which the entire functioning of mankind depends on to work smoothly, human beings have to be free to spend their money the way they want. Whenever a customer chooses product A over product B because he obviously feels that product A makes his life better, he's not just making his own life better, he's helping society perform a crucial social calculation. By giving his money to company A, he's helping nourish the superior social order that is guided by the superior knowledge embodied in company A. At the same time, by withdrawing funds from companies B, C, D, and E, he's forcing them to either copy the superior knowledge embodied in company A so that they too can restructure their social order to be just as efficient. They can also come up with superior ideas on their own. They can sell their productive structure to company A so that the management team in company A now takes over, and it can also restructure this mini human ant farm to be just as efficient. Or they can just sort of go bankrupt and sell their assets so that those assets can incorporate themselves into the rest of society in other more profitable and therefore more productive plans. This competitive knowledge sharing and social order shaping mechanism that we have just briefly gone over is part of a much bigger economic process that economists refer to as the market process. The market process combines the computational ability of free individuals to create the world's most powerful social supercomputer, and the only one that can figure out how to give a productive order to billions of human beings. Next, we are going to discuss another mechanism that is part of this market process that also greatly helps us achieve a productive order. And I will just briefly refer to it as interest rate coordination. Every social entity, whether it be an individual or a company, has a number that describes the relationship between how much it produces and how much it consumes. This is what is commonly referred to as the return on investment. Our mining company example consumed $1 million worth of wealth, but it also produced $1.5 million worth of wealth for a return on investment of 50%. It managed to grow the economic pie by 50% more than that which it consumed. Ideally, we would want every person to be guided by knowledge that had the highest return on investment. This way, the economic pie would be growing as fast as possible. One way the market process achieves this is via the interest rate. An interest rate can be seen as the price a borrower pays for the use of wealth he does not already own, and is expressed as a percentage of the original amount loaned. For example, say I want to borrow $1,000 at an interest rate of 10%. At the end of the year, I will have to have paid back the original amount of the loan, the $1,000, plus 10% of the original amount, which is $100, for a total of $1,100. The higher the interest rate someone is willing to pay on a loan, the more incentive people have to lend this person their saved wealth. Let's go over an example that shows how the interest rate, the banking and lending industry, and savings all work together. Let's say that through the years, Tim has managed to produce $1 million worth of wealth more than that which he has consumed. So he has saved $1 million. Now Tim has an idea for an auto repair shop, which he feels will have a return on investment of 6%. At the end of the year, his business will have consumed about $1 million worth of wealth from the economic pie, but at the same time, it produced $1,060,000 worth of wealth in terms of auto repair services for a profit of $60,000, which is 6% of his $1 million. Now, banks and other lending institutions are willing to offer Tim an 8% return on investment if he lends them his money. Banks are going to take Tim's $1 million and they're going to lend it to EasyPhone Incorporated at an interest rate of 10%. At the end of the year, they get back $1,100,000 from EasyPhone. They pay Tim his $1,080,000, and they get to keep the $20,000 as a profit. This is how banks make their money. They borrow at a lower interest rate. They lend that same wealth to others at a higher interest rate, and they get to keep the difference as a profit. Now, the wonderful thing that has happened here is that the saved wealth, which would have sustained an idea that would have grown the economic pie by 6%, instead has been used to sustain an idea that would have grown the economic pie by at least 10%. If we assume that EasyPhone has sales revenues of $1,250,000, in this case the economic pie would have grown by 25% as opposed to 6%. Let's assume that the average interest rate across society is at around 5%. This means that millions of brains that have ideas that can grow the economic pie from anywhere from around 1% to maybe 5% will choose to abandon those inferior ideas and lend their savings to people who have ideas that can grow the economic pie by greater than 5%. So thanks to the interest rate and the banking and lending and finance industries, one can see how the human supercomputer is clicking on all cylinders, as wealth is always being paired with ideas that can grow the economic pie by the greatest amount possible. Inferior ideas are always being abandoned to make way for superior ideas. Next, we will take a look at the special role that savings plays in society. The more there is of something, the lower its price tends to be. Why are grains of sand so cheap? Because there are so many of them. Well, the same thing applies to savings. The more wealth people save, the lower the cost of borrowing becomes, which reflects itself in lower interest rates. Imagine a society where there is very little to no savings. If you look at this human ant farm from high above, its human ants are going to be locked in the same pattern of production and consumption. They cannot break away from this pattern to attempt a new idea because they do not have enough saved wealth with which to sustain all the people that are working on this new idea before it can actually start increasing the economic pie by creating a product. For example, think about the millions of dollars of wealth that have to be consumed from the economic pie as thousands of people work on creating a manufacturing plant for a year or two before the manufacturing plant can actually start increasing the world's economic pie of wealth. If there is very little savings leading to high interest rates of say 30%, then only those few ideas that can grow the economic pie by more than 30% will be able to do so and pay back their loans. This is very bad for society because society is bound to have many people whose ideas can grow the economic pie by 5, 10, 25, up to 30% who will not be able to do so at such high interest rates. For example, EasyPhone managed to grow a small section of the economic pie by 25%, but if he had to pay back a loan at 30% interest, it would not be able to do so, leaving society with a smaller economic pie than would have otherwise been the case. If on the other hand society is very frugal, saves a lot, and the interest rates are very low at perhaps 2%, then even a simple idea that can grow the economic pie by as little as 5% will be able to do so. Now you can borrow at 2%, grow the economic pie by 5%, and keep the 3% difference as a profit. The interest rate can be seen as performing two crucial functions for society. Number one, it helps us measure how much saved wealth society has with which to fund new ideas. The more wealth we save, the lower the interest rate will be, the more profitable ideas will be able to expand the economic pie. The less we save, the higher the interest rate will be, and this ensures that only the most profitable ideas will be able to borrow the small amount of saved wealth that society has. The second thing the interest rate does, it acts as a barometer of ideas. Ideas that will grow the economic pie by less than the interest rate will be abandoned, and the saved wealth that they would have munched on is loaned to ideas that have a higher return on investment than the current interest rate. Now, it doesn't matter if you do not have any savings of your own. As long as your idea can increase the economic pie by more than the current interest rate, you don't have a problem. You borrow at the current interest rate, you can increase the economic pie by more than the interest rate, you can pay back the loan and keep the difference for the profit. So we can imagine the social order. Constantly, you have millions of brains, people coming up with ideas, checking them with the interest rate. If their ideas are superior than the interest rate, great, they can borrow, increase the economic pie, pay back the loans. If your ideas are inferior to the interest rate, you abandon them, you lend the saved wealth to people with better ideas. So this mechanism is constantly pairing superior ideas with the wealth needed to carry them out. And again, the more we save, the lower the interest rate will be, which will allow us to carry even more restructurings of the social order. So a society that saves a lot is a very dynamic society. It's constantly morphing its social order as new ideas come along and they can borrow the necessary wealth to restructure the social order in more productive and technologically advanced states. So in many ways, the more we save, the more we help bring the future closer to the present. Because what really is the future? The difference between the future and the present is just a restructuring of society.